Being financially literate is about more than just knowing how to make a budget. It's the ability to understand and manage everyday decisions like how to earn, spend, save, borrow, and protect your money. I used to struggle with living paycheck to paycheck. I really wanted a better life for myself, but I found it difficult to do better when I didn't know any better. In 2020, I reached a point where I could no longer sit around and hope for things to get better. So I started learning how to manage my money, to invest, get control of my debt, and plan for retirement. And taking that time to invest in my financial education has completely changed the trajectory of my life. And honestly, with the way the world is now, more than ever, we can't afford to not understand how the system works and how to make it work for us as much as possible. The four key areas that I'm going to cover in this video are money management, investing, debt management, and retirement planning. Focusing on these four areas has proven to be extremely valuable in my life. So, for each category, I'm going to share key insights, lessons, and strategies that I learned that have really helped me. So, let's start with the foundation of money management. So, before, when I would make a budget, I would simply look at how much money I made, minus any bills that I had to pay, and then I would just spend the rest. But now, instead of using my budget as a way to manage my bills, I focus on using it as a tool for building wealth. One of the lessons that I learned that had the biggest impact on the way that I budget is the idea of paying myself first. This is an idea that comes up in a lot of different financial books, but I first read about it in The Richest Man in Babylon. The book suggests taking 10% of your income and keeping it for yourself. Or another way to look at it is you're using this 10% in order to pay your future self, because this is the money that's going to allow you to buy back your freedom and retire one day. So for me, I take home about $4,000 a month. So following this 10% rule, I should be keeping $400 a month to pay my future self. I know that this can look like a lot, especially if you're in a position where you're struggling financially or you have a lot of debt. I know because I've been there, but throughout this video, I want to show you how I was able to go from struggling from paycheck to paycheck to a point where keeping 10% was more than possible. So I'm going to show you my budget here. And I do want to acknowledge that the reason I'm able to put so much away is that A, I do earn a decent income, and B, my living expenses, as you can see, are very low. So keep in mind that if 10% is all you can put aside, that's still a great position to be in, and it's still going to make a difference over time. When making my budget, instead of creating it 1 month at a time, I create it on a yearly basis and then break it down by month, as you can see here. I find that by doing this, it's easier to plan for random expenses that don't show up on a monthly basis, like taking my dog to the vet, getting an oil change, going to the dentist, etc. I'll also add notes to each month throughout the year if a new expense comes up or if there's a seasonal discount on something that I want to be able to take advantage of next year. And I'll use these notes to adjust my budget for the following year. Starting off with the yearly focus also helps me to create a plan for reaching my financial goals. So you can see here that there are different accounts that I'm contributing to throughout the year, and I have a yearly goal for each. I update this monthly so I can see the progress that I'm making towards each goal throughout the year. When I set a goal, I look at where I am versus where I want to be, and then I calculate how much I need to contribute on a monthly basis in order to reach that goal. This allows me to see if my goals are actually feasible or if I need to adjust my spending or my expectations. So, as an example, if I want to grow my FHSA by, say, $6,000 over the year, I would take that $6,000, divide it by 12 months, and that gives me $500 a month I need to put towards that goal. So once I have that number, I go through my budget month by month and add it in to make sure it fits into my plan. If for some reason it doesn't work, let's say I have a few random expenses one month that make it impossible to hit that goal, I can either take some of my fun money and put it towards that goal, or just accept that that month is going to be a bit less and maybe invest more in another month where I have some more wiggle room. To make it easy to stick to my budget, I automate my bill payments and my contributions towards my goals. I also keep multiple checking accounts so I can separate my money and see exactly where it's going and how much I have left in each category at any given time, which helps me avoid overspending. Now, outside of budgeting, there are a few things that I do in order to keep more money in my pocket. For one thing, when it comes to banking, I use a bank account that has no monthly fees and offers a high interest rate. So for this, I use Wealthsimple. With them, I earn an interest rate of 1.75%, which might not sound like much, but it's significantly better than the 0.01% that most of the major banks offer. It ends up giving me about $4.50 a month, which again doesn't sound like much, but it's better than having a bank account where I'm paying $25 a month just to have the bank account and also making no interest. Because if you think about it, if you're paying $25 a month for your bank account, that adds up to $300 a year. So having a free bank account instantly saves me $300. Plus, I'm earning around $54 a year in interest, which means that I'm keeping $354 more per year than somebody who's paying $25 a month for a bank account. Another way that I keep more of my money is by using a credit card that gives me 1% cash back on gas and groceries. And you can find better rates out there with a higher cashback percentage. I'm limited to the type of credit that I'm allowed to use right now because of my debt repayment program. But still, having that 1% cash back helps me keep about $5 extra per month, which isn't much. But if you find a card that offers 3% cash back, that could end up being $180 more per month that you get to keep. The third thing that I do is I buy most of my groceries from Food Basics. I find they generally have the best prices. They also have a rewards point system that I take advantage of to earn free groceries. I also do my best to buy things on sale. In order to get the most savings, I plan out my groceries a month at a time, then add everything that I'm planning to buy for the month into my cart online. And each week when I'm preparing to go grocery shopping, I'll check my cart and see what's on sale that week and use that as my guide for what I'm going to meal prep. Also, while I'm shopping, if I see meat that's at a discount, like 40%, because it's a day or two away from its best before date, I'll buy that and then just keep it in the freezer until I need it. This definitely has the biggest impact on my wallet. So far this month, I've already managed to save $49.55 by shopping sales. So while none of these are huge savings on their own, between my free bank account saving me an estimated $25 a month, my 1.75% interest earning me $4.50, my cashback credit card giving me another $5, and saving about $49 through shopping sales, I'm able to keep $82 more per month, which adds up to $984 per year. And that doesn't include any free groceries that I'm able to buy with points. Although within the last year, I've been able to accumulate about $30 worth. So in total, that's about $1,000 more that I've been able to keep. So, those are the strategies that I use in order to better manage my money and keep more money in my pocket. Now, I want to talk about investing. Personally, investing was the most exciting topic for me to learn about. I love the idea of putting my money to work for me and having it help me reach my goals quicker. One thing that I want to mention is I find most financial experts recommend that you completely pay off your debt before you start investing. I, however, did not follow this rule because in my situation, it actually made more financial sense for me to invest while paying off my debt instead of waiting until it was completely paid off. So I just want to point out here that there is a bit of nuance to this advice, but I'll talk about that more in the debt section. Back to investing. When I started learning about investing, something that helped me feel more comfortable with investing was realizing I didn't need a ton of money and I could get started with as little as $1. So, the way that I do this is by buying fractional shares or buying a piece of a share instead of the whole thing. And for investing, I also use Wealthsimple. So if I wanted to buy a stock like Apple, which is over $300, but I don't have $300 to invest, or I don't want to risk that much money in one stock, I can simply put in the dollar amount that I want to invest and buy part of the share, which gives me the opportunity to buy a share over time or simply reduce the amount of money that I'm risking in any one stock. Speaking of risk, before I took the time to learn about the stock market, I really thought it was too risky for me. But in reading the book Money Master the Game, I found that even though there is risk in investing, there are also a few simple strategies that anyone can use in order to help mitigate that risk. So, the three strategies that I learned about and now use in my investing are dollar cost averaging, having an asset allocation based on my unique risk tolerance, and diversification. So, first, dollar cost averaging is an investment strategy where you invest a fixed amount of money at regular intervals, like weekly or monthly, regardless of stock price fluctuations. By doing this, you automatically buy more stocks when the price is low and less stocks when the price is high, which helps reduce the risk of bad market timing so that you get more of an average return instead of having these crazy high and low fluctuations. So I do this by investing a set amount every month because I'm paid on a monthly basis, and I have my investments automated so that each month when my pay hits my bank account, it automatically buys certain investments for a set dollar amount regardless of the price. The next strategy that I use is having an asset allocation based on my risk tolerance and time horizon. If you're unfamiliar, an asset allocation is simply a breakdown of how much of your portfolio is made up of different investments. This could be broken down by countries, industries, or simply the percentage of stocks you own compared to bonds. Certain countries, like emerging markets, and certain industries, like pharmaceuticals, are considered to be riskier than others, and stocks are generally considered to be riskier than bonds because there tends to be more dramatic gains and losses in the short term. So, when creating an asset allocation, it's good to understand the risks associated with what you're buying and to help balance it out with less risky options, especially if you're investing for the short term and you don't have a lot of time to recover from a big dip in the market. The third strategy that I use to help reduce my risk while investing is diversification, which is simply not putting all of my eggs in one basket. I do this by investing in a variety of industries and also a variety of countries. There are a few simple ways to diversify, such as buying REITs, ETF, asset allocation funds, or mutual funds. REITs are real estate investment trusts, which are a way to invest in real estate through the stock market. They allow you to own properties like apartment buildings, hospitals, warehouses, and shopping centers. And they give you a share of the income that's generated from those properties. So basically, it's a way to invest in real estate without having to save thousands of dollars for a down payment or having to actively manage a property on your own. ETFs, or exchange traded funds, are my personal favorite way to diversify. They are a type of investment that contains a basket of investments that can be made up of stocks, bonds, or commodities. And they give you fractional ownership of all of the stocks held within the ETF. So, for example, the S&P 500 is a really popular ETF that holds the 500 biggest companies in the US. So by buying that one ETF, you then own a little bit of each of those 500 companies. Similar to ETFs are mutual funds. The big difference here is that mutual funds are actively managed and they're focused on outperforming the market. I'm personally not a big fan of these because they tend to have higher fees associated with them because they're actively managed. And in the long run, the vast majority of mutual funds simply don't outperform the market. And finally, there are asset allocation funds, which can either be ETFs or mutual funds that are designed to balance risk and reward with a diversified asset mix. And it's just a really simple way to stick with your asset allocation by buying one stock instead of trying to buy a bunch of stocks individually and manage it yourself. So that's how I manage my risk with investing. One thing that I do in order to help my investments grow quicker is using what's called a DRIP program or a dividend reinvestment plan. If you're unfamiliar with dividends, basically dividends are a way for a company to pay you for owning their stocks. So I know there's some months where I might have like $8 worth of dividends, and there's other months where I could have 30 plus dollars worth of dividends coming in. But basically, what the DRIP program does is once you get paid that dividend, instead of taking that money and keeping it as cash or using it to buy things, it's then reinvested into whatever stock the dividend came from. So let's say I have a stock that I own that's worth $100 and it gives me a $10 dividend. Instead of taking that $10 and using it to go buy a coffee or something, it will automatically buy me $10 worth of that $100 stock, so that that money that the company just paid me is immediately going back to work for me, which will help my investments compound over time. So now that I've talked about different kinds of investments and how I manage risk, I want to talk about another really important thing, which is the different types of accounts that you can hold investments in. So in Canada, there are a few different account types worth knowing. There's the RRSP, the TFSA, and the FHSA. The RRSP, or Registered Retirement Savings Plan, as the name suggests, this is an account that is meant for investing for retirement. Some key things to know about this account are your contributions are tax deductible. So any money that you put into this account reduces your taxable income. Another important thing to note is there is a contribution limit, and any unused contribution limit from the previous year is carried over. And there is also penalties if you happen to invest beyond your contribution limit. So it's important to make sure that you log into your CRA account and know what your limit is if you're going to be investing in this account. And finally, it's important to note that while you do get a tax deduction now for any money that you invest, you will eventually pay tax on this money when you take it out of the account. And the idea behind this is that generally when you're in retirement, you're in a lower tax bracket, so you won't have to pay as much in tax. However, if you plan to retire and keep your lifestyle about the same, an RRSP might not be the best place to put your money for retirement. The second account worth knowing is the TFSA, or tax free savings account. The biggest benefit of this account is that any money that you invest grows completely tax free. So when you take the money out, you don't pay any tax. Even if you put in $5,000 and it grows to $20,000, you don't have to pay any tax on that when you take it out. Some key things to keep in mind with this account are, again, there is a contribution limit, and any contribution limit that's unused from previous years is carried over. And again, there is a penalty if you go over your contribution limit. So it's important to know what your limit is, and you can also find this in your CRA account. Personally, this is the account that I use for investing for my retirement because I don't necessarily plan to be in a lower income tax bracket when I retire. And the third important account to know is the FHSA, or the First Home Savings Account. As with the first two accounts that I mentioned, there is a contribution limit, although it's the same for everybody, so it's $8,000 a year, and there is a maximum contribution limit of $40,000. This account has two major benefits. One being that, like an RRSP, your contributions to this account are tax deductible. So your contributions work to lower your taxable income. And second, like a TFSA, the money that you invest in this account grows tax free. So right now, this is the account that I'm funding the most heavily because I intend to buy a duplex within the next year. My goal is to live in one unit and rent out the other unit and have that rent pay for a good portion of my mortgage so I'm able to keep my living expenses low. And I know this option might not sound appealing to everyone, but I really wanted to throw it out there because I wish I had known this was an option sooner. Getting into real estate investing is really difficult these days, and doing it this way can be an easier way to get your foot in the door. But if you simply just want to have a house for yourself, then an FHSA is still a great way to save for that goal. That wraps up the investing basics that helped me improve my financial situation. Next, I'm going to cover debt management. So, as I mentioned earlier, I used to be $48,000 in debt. At that time, I felt really hopeless about my debt situation because it was going to take me 15 plus years in order to pay that back, and it was going to cost me tens of thousands of dollars in interest. What changed things for me was getting help through credit counseling. All it took was a simple 20-minute phone call where I talked about my income, my expenses, and my debt. And they were able to put me into a debt repayment program where they actually negotiated with my creditors on my behalf and got them to agree to stop charging me interest completely. And that one simple phone call made it so I was able to repay my debt completely in 4.5 years instead of 15 plus. And it saved me tens of thousands of dollars in interest payments. And this is why, as I mentioned earlier, even though most financial professionals recommend that you pay off your debt completely before investing, I didn't follow this rule because the interest on my debt was 0%. So it wasn't really costing me anything extra in order to simply make the minimum payment. So instead of trying to put more money on it and pay it down quicker, I could simply take any extra money I had and invest that during that time where I was paying down my debt, so that once my debt was completely repaid, I would also have created a good amount of momentum with my investing. So I'm able to get ahead even while I'm repaying my debt, if that makes sense. And I really wanted to mention this because I think it's a really great example of how there really isn't any one size fits all approach when it comes to personal finances. Everyone's situation is going to be different. And I really think that the more you're able to customize your financial plan to your specific goals and limitations, the less stressed and better off you're going to be. So, if you're feeling trapped by debt right now, I really want to encourage you to look into your options because you do have options and you don't have to face this burden on your own. And even if for whatever reason you decide that credit counseling isn't for you, you can still call your creditors directly and negotiate with them to try to get your interest rates lower in order to make your debt repayment more manageable. If you decide to go this route, though, I would just suggest doing a bit of research and maybe even looking for scripts online to give you a bit of an idea of how to better negotiate with your creditors and increase your odds of getting them to agree to different terms. Because getting control of my debt personally has made such a big difference in my life. And once I am completely repaid, that's going to free up another $550 a month that I can then redirect towards my financial goals. And that's what I'm planning to do in a year once I reach that milestone. I'm planning to take that money and invest it in my TFSA so I can start investing more aggressively for retirement and hopefully retire early. And speaking of retirement, the next thing I want to talk about is retirement planning. With retirement planning, one of the most freeing and exciting things that I learned is that retirement isn't an age, it's a number in your bank account. And this is the idea behind the FIRE movement, which, if you're not familiar, FIRE stands for Financial Independence, Retire Early. This isn't so much about quitting work at a certain age, it's more so about hitting a certain amount of money invested so that you can choose when and how you retire. So, if you're wondering how to figure out this number, how to figure out how much you would realistically need in order to retire, a common rule of thumb is taking your expected yearly spending in retirement and multiplying that by 25. And that will give you a rough target to aim for. So for me, I'm going to say I want to spend 70,000 a year in retirement. Multiply that by 25 and you get $1,750,000, which you're probably looking at that thinking, "Oh my god, it would be impossible for me to save that much money." But the thing is, you don't have to. The goal is to invest money into retirement, which allows you to only have to put away a fraction of that amount. And again, this is part of the reason why I'm choosing to invest for retirement through my TFSA, so that any money that I do earn on that growth is mine to keep. Another big thing to know when it comes to investing is that the younger you start, the better. Because the younger you start, the less you have to contribute on a monthly basis in order to hit your target. Because time is going to do a lot of the heavy lifting for you. But no matter what your age is right now, you can still build a better future for yourself by getting started today. And that's it. Those are the key insights and strategies that I've learned and applied to improve my financial situation, keep more money in my pocket, and put my money to work for me so I don't have to work as hard in order to reach my goals. I'll leave some links in the description to some helpful resources and some extra book recommendations that I didn't mention here. Some of these links will be affiliate links, so if you purchase something through them, I may earn a small commission at no extra cost to you. I'll be sure to note which links those are so you can decide whether or not you'd like to use them. And if there's anything that I mentioned in this video that you would like me to dive deeper into in another video, please let me know in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one.